Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Cafecito with La Prensa Texas. Thank you so much for being here. I'm your host and founder of MVW Communications, Melissa Vela-Williamson. Today, we are going to get better acquainted with our friends at La Prensa Texas, publisher Yvette, and editor-in-chief Roxanne Roxy Eguia. Good afternoon, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Hi,
Awesome.
y'all.
Thank you for being here. Let's start with some short introductions. Yvette, you're up first. Can you tell us more about you and your role at La Prensa Texas?
So I am a San Antonio native. I've lived here my entire life, born and raised. I absolutely love our city. I am a mother of 3, a grandmother of 2. I own a construction company, and I'm the publisher for La Prensa Texas. My role as publisher is to oversee the weekly publication. It's to oversee the printed version, the digital, social media content, our weekly email newsletter. I take care of the sales and marketing, event coordinating, and business operations.
That's awesome. You're not busy at all, right? Not at all. Early in my career, I did not understand exactly what a publisher did. And I had a friend who was joining my organization from being a publisher at the Current. And he told me, he's like, we're the main salesperson for the newspaper and the organization. Would you say that's right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Roxy, tell us about you. You have been around La Prensa for a while, but a lot of times behind email for some of us PR pros. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at La Prensa Texas.
Yeah, awesome. So I have been with La Prensa Texas since it first got off the ground in 2018. And as a reporter journalist for really like a lot of my adult life, this was like an amazing opportunity to jump in on and help preserve this legacy. But outside of the paper, I do a lot of performance art and dancing. So I'm very passionate about the arts community in San Antonio. And you will see a big piece of that in our publication. We definitely spotlight. But as far as the day-to-day as an editor-in-chief, because the majority of our content is community contributed, I really exist to nourish those relationships and channels with all of our community members and planning and scheduling content and editing for it to fit the different parts of our publication. So yeah, that's like my daily duty. I've been with the paper since 2018 and we've never missed a deadline. So
wow, you haven't. That's really awesome. And I will say, as someone who's emailed over asking questions or story ideas, you've always been very nice about things. So I appreciate that. Well, let's talk a little bit about what has changed for La Prensa Texas in the last year, because some of the information came out during the height of craziness and pandemic time. So Yvette, can you explain how La Prensa reorganized in October 2020? And
Sure. Yeah. So we started and actually it was in August of 2020 that we officially went nonprofit, and we are now ran by a board of directors that I like to refer to as the Magnificent Seven, because they just are the cream of the crop and they are absolutely the best. We have Leonard Rodriguez, who is our chair, Luis Esquereño, who is our secretary, Commissioner Tommy Calvert, Dr. William Elizondo, Dr. Ricardo Romo, and Mr. Fernando Reyes, and myself. That is our board. So it's a very different concept from what La Prensa has always been, which was it survived on advertisement sales. And now it's a little bit different because, just like Roxy says, we have a lot of community contributors, and this is just a new way for them to be able to contribute.
So as a nonprofit, things are running a little bit differently. You work with the board of directors. What else should our audience know about how things work today? Anything from your perspective, Roxy?
yeah, I think it's the nonprofit journalism that we are stewards of at our publication really lends itself as a platform for all the voices of San Antonio. And, you know, as someone who is like constantly looking out and reaching out for content to curate in the paper, We really love creating those connections with community members, and just helping them tell their story. We aim for people that you wouldn't see being spotlighted in any other publication. These are literally like our neighbors, and people who own small businesses in San Antonio. It's like we really want to give them the platform. So it's very free form and conversational because different people are jumping in on different times. We do our best to provide the platform. And yes, Ramon Chapa is,
He's not on the board.
he's not on the board, but he is our community liaison. He, as you know, he works really, really a lot with Tommy Calvert. He covers a lot of the east side and the southeast side, but it's like hyper local content, which is really, really cool.
So I am a woman and I am on the board. We have had other women on the board, but because this board is a very engaged board, and it's not just because it is. We're a weekly publication. I wanted to add that we're also a free publication, and that's another reason why this going nonprofit is so important to us as well. And like I said, there were other women on the board, but because there was just so much that it's our board is very committed, and they have created so many new partnerships for us. And another avenue, and the way that things have changed by becoming a nonprofit and having this board, we have new partnerships. We've just recently partnered with Telemundo television, KROV FM radio. Our latest partnership is via transit. So at Freeman Coliseum. So we really are, and all of those partnerships happen because of our board members. They made the connections, and obviously they were great fits for us, and it worked well for us to partner together.
Wonderful, wonderful. And we can explore a little bit in our Q&A about ways to get involved, because I know that there's going to be opportunities, just like any other boards or committees. There's different, members that come in and out and ways to get involved. So we'll kind of hold. You all are welcome to put questions in the Q&A, please, and then we'll answer those in our last 15 minutes because we got a whole lot to get through. Sure. So Roxy, let's get into, because my understanding as a PR pro is it kind of seems like there's the print edition, right, that we all love and is very important to our community. There's online publication and off the website, and there's stories on the website, and of course the digital team. So let's start with the newspaper operations. So what does newspaper operations look like now? And can you walk us through the newspaper in terms of print and how that's working, and then online and how that's working?
Certainly. Yeah. So because we are a weekly publication, this is something that happens every week. And every Thursday we send to print. So Thursday is our big print production day, where like kind of all of us are like off the phones and we're just like on to this production. And we get that done on Thursdays. And Friday is when we do all of our web uploading, and like all of our web edits really happen on Friday, since all the content is in and we're just organizing it for the website. And then of course our print circulation is on Sundays. So our priority deadline for content is on Mondays. That's so that we can really make sure that it makes it into the publication, and then that it makes sense. And then Tuesday is like our hard deadline for all content and advertisements. Anything that's going in the paper has to be there on Tuesday, because Wednesday is our layout day. And once it's at the graphic designer, we don't really like to make any major adjustments or story changes once it's like already getting into the production. So that is what our weeks look like every week at the paper.
Every week.
Yeah, every week.
I hope you all wrote that down. That's really important, because like I know Thursday, no go, don't call them with story ideas on a Thursday, right, Roxy? You're getting that stuff out.
Yes, it is out here. And
that's
I
wonderful.
put some photos into the chat of like our weekly production schedule and our story word counts, just for reference for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're really flexible.
So with the stories, are you saying that you will accept like pre-written articles? Is that correct?
Definitely, especially on our time crunch. we will definitely accept them, especially because all of our PR professionals do a really good job, like of telling stories. That is what they're really good at. And we love to give them credit for that and to advance their stories. And a lot of the times, people will send us like drop a line with like the info for the advance. And sometimes we'll run the advance for the community members to get involved. And then we can take people from our staff to actually attend the event and then feature that later, like a week later in like our Eventos Especiales section, which is always like a good opportunity for people to promote their organizations. But yeah, I will upload those little word counts right now so you guys can see them.
Fabulous. That's wonderful. That's super helpful. And then what about what's happening on social? We've seen, or I've definitely noticed, right? Your social media and online news presence really grow. So what is new there, and how does this new digital team work into your operations?
So our digital team, they do very little. Just kidding. They're actually,
Oh, there goes my chat. Forget it.
no, I love our digital team. They have done so much for us. They are a breath of fresh air. And because La Prensa is a 100-year legacy, having this new edition has really allowed us to evolve. And the way they work is we've got a team member on each sector, which is north, south, east, west, and central. And they are reporting on their areas, but their areas because they live there. They know that. So we rely on what we know. So who better to tell the story about their area? You know, that's what we are. We are the news for the people, by the people. And this is what they do. And they do it so well. And they really, there's people that will reach out to them and ask them, can you talk about this? Can you cover this? And there's just things that they know that are happening and what's relevant to them, because that is their area, is one of the sources that they use to be able to create the content for our social media. And I think people love it. I know they do. People just love hearing their stories by them. So it's a really fun aspect. And it's not always fun because there's sometimes they do got to talk about issues that are not always real comfortable to talk about, but we have to talk about those things and the things that are happening in our areas.
Yeah, having the tough conversations is very valuable for good change as long as it's constructive. So thank you for going there and doing that. And what I'm hearing you say is that it's very hyper local, right? You've always been that outlet for the community of placing the warm stories, the human interest stories, those resource stories, but now you're really diving in even by kind of corridor and saying, okay, like the heart of the West Side stories, you know, are best told by this person, the South Side by this person and whatnot. So anything you need in the far West, I got you right here. So wonderful. Roxy, what is the best way for us to share story ideas with your team? I'm going to break it up into kind of areas since you are multi passionate and talented there too. So we have a story idea that we think would be great for the newspaper. So how would we send a print story idea to your team?
Right. So you would want to submit that to me at r.eguia@laprensa.texas.com and also share to Yvette's email, the y.teo@laprensa.texas.com. And also with our digital team, they have, it's literally digitalteam@laprensa.texas.com, that email. And we're all monitoring those to launch conversations and get those ideas into our production schedule. And I know someone had mentioned like how far in advance, because we operate a week in advance. It's really good to send any story ideas at least 2 weeks in advance so we can coordinate between us. Because some community contributors, you know, we can reach out and be like, is anyone interested in covering this? And they can go on our behalf. And also our digital team, they are really good at kind of having their heart on the pulse of San Antonio and being able to find stories before they even really pop. So they're kind of on their own beats, and we will share story ideas with them via that email. for all of them to consider on top of all the other stories that they're covering.
That's awesome. What a find. That's your nugget, y'all. Send me nice messages on LinkedIn and whatnot for that digital team at laprensa.texas.com. We will put them in the chat as we're going along. Just give us a little bit of room here and we'll take care of that for you all. What about online? So in terms of like the online web story, is that operated a little differently, or is if you get something in print, does that go online? How does that work, Roxy or Yvette?
Go ahead, Roxy. Yeah.
Right. So we really try to have all of the content working together. So anything that's in the print edition is going to go online. And anything that the digital team is going to cover is going to be featured in the print publication as well. So we're kind of all everywhere, hitting all bases at the same time. But when you will see unique web stories, that's when people send amazing resources or events or something that's newsworthy like the week of, and we can't necessarily get it in print. And we may not have someone available to go cover it right away, but we can stick that advance online and put it on our social media and just try to get the word out, especially for stuff that's really relevant to our mission. We'll make sure that stuff gets on the web.
Okay, wonderful. And we always like to dig a little deeper with our journalist friends in terms of how to communicate with you. So is email the key? Do you like a phone call if we have an idea we want to bounce off you? What's your preference, Roxy?
Email is 100% the key. And like when we get into conversation, I do want to share with y'all kind of our summer production schedule and bigger picture comprehensive editions that we're working on putting together, that we would love to include stories that are like part of that topic for the summer series. And we can start the conversation in email, and then as we get closer and we really need to be exchanging information details, we can set up appointments at that time.
Ah, very good. So coffee appointments, maybe coffee Zooms. I've done coffee Zooms. Oh, sounds good. Yvette, did we miss anything in terms of that you wanted to add, or did we get it right?
No, you got it. You're good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to throw this out there and you ladies pick it up as you find relevant. So I know as far as public relations professionals in the communication, we did talk a little bit about scheduling. Sounded like Thursday was a bad time to be trying to follow up on an idea. Are there any particular like times of days that's a sweet spot to email something over? Or do you have any particular preferences on, again, so we want to think about something 2 weeks in advance, but with your rhythm, if you have any detailed preferences there that we didn't hit, I just want to give you an opportunity to tell us about that.
That's it. Got it.
So Fridays are our meetings day. That's when we really set up like a lot of conversations and like we really start building for the next editions is on Friday. It's kind of our piece it together day. Make sure everything's spoken for that week and that we're looking great for the next week. And then also Mondays are really great days because those are priority deadlines. So people are going to be sending in their like stuff that has to go in that week. And we could get a good gauge of the conversation of like, if we'll have room for that content this Sunday or not. That's like a good day to gauge it. Monday and Tuesday those are like our deadline days when people are turning stuff in. So those are like when we're really working. And then Wednesday and Thursday is kind of more of like, you've missed the deadline and we're really working on this stuff. But it's good to have stuff sent in even after that deadline, because on Friday we can be like, oh, did you see this? Let's make sure that we're putting it into this for next week.
Got it. Well, that's really great. Thank you. So La Prensa Texas and all La Prensa papers have been so special to our community because they are bilingual in English and Spanish. And that is definitely a difference maker here. Let's talk a little bit about how you incorporate Spanish in your publication and your outlets. What should we know about your Spanish language needs? So for example, do our clients need to speak Spanish for a newspaper or digital interview?
No, they don't. We can do interviews in English or in Spanish. We can do our Tex-Mex interviews too. Whatever you need, whatever makes you comfortable. And it really is for your target audience. Sometimes we've got some nonprofits that are trying to reach certain, just a certain demographic. It just depends on what they're trying to do and what their mission is, but they don't have to speak or they can. It's really up to the preference of the person that we're interviewing.
Okay, wonderful. I always hear that question quietly bounce around the halls, so I wanted to ask that a little bit. Roxy's getting her salsa on over there.
I know, yeah, I heard something, I was like, oh, that's a beat.
Like that.
Yes, but also what's great about working with our PR friends is like when they send us something in English, that's like a great resource. Or like if I've seen that somewhere, or like I feel like the message is out there, we will go ahead and translate it on our end, and I'll ask permission at that point and be like, hey, this is a great thing to share with the community. Do you mind if we translate it to Spanish and run it on this day? And typically people are like really down for that because you're, growing your outreach and you're reaching those Spanish speakers as well. And it's just to kind of ensure that the news gets to everyone, especially all the details. So that's why it's really good if you already have like pre-written stuff that sounds good. We'll edit it for the paper, like maybe help you with like some of the dates, or edit it down to fit whatever page it will work on, and then translate it if we need to. Because ideally our ratio for the paper, we like to keep it like a 50-50 ratio of English and Spanish content. And that goes for our advertisements as well, because we get a lot of ads in Spanish and we're just like, let's make sure that the content is just as good as all of these advertisements. So with that in mind, we do have some Spanish writers on staff that do cover stuff specifically in Spanish. And then we have our English writers that do their thing. And then we also are blessed to have people on staff who are bilingual. So it's like both.
You've got it all covered there. I love that. I like how you are trying to make it very easy for everyone to get what they need in terms of language preferences. In terms of the content we deliver to you, I did hear that you can edit our materials or translate it, but so it sounds like to me you don't necessarily need press releases in Spanish. Would it be helpful if you got them, or do you bilingual format easier for your team?
I think like whatever is easiest for y'all, because we'll find a way to make it work for that week. Because like some week it's like, dude, we need some Spanish content this week. And if you are sending in stories that you already have it ready made, English and in Spanish for us, we'll just throw it in and then it's easy.
That's a great tip. So if you can translate it, transculturate it in your office, do so, because it sounds like that would be a difference maker for La Prensa, correct?
Yeah, if it's easier, yeah.
Well, so if you have that 50-50 split in language, how do you all decide which stories should be in Spanish or English?
So a lot of our Spanish writers kind of already have their beat, and it's kind of decided by whoever's contributing. But really for the resources is what I really like to translate into Spanish, just to make sure that Spanish speakers are receiving the details. Because we all see the headlines going around, but it's like when we're talking about specific access, that's what we like to translate into Spanish to make sure that that is there. And we also like to have a good balance, because our fantastic, iconic sports writer who has been with La Prensa for years and years and years, decades. He is an amazing journalist, and he covers, his beat is mostly sports. He does a lot of sports and he works directly with the Spurs. So like there's a lot of Spanish content, a lot of sports content in Spanish. So we will balance that by like including articles about like get creative events in San Antonio and Espanol as well, if they are offering any kind of resources in Spanish or something like that, just to kind of balance out the content. But we do a lot of cool translations. Like sometimes we'll have both languages available online to read. And yeah, like the Spanish bridge, we would really ultimately love to build a bridge Because La Prensa for me, like personally, when I first started using the paper or reading the paper, it was as a language learning tool as a child with my grandparents, and like learning how to read Spanish in the paper, like that really fueled me to be a better Spanish speaker. So we are working with educators in San Antonio to try to figure out, like maybe in the next volume of our publication, how we can integrate more language learning tools and really building those bridge. So one example, one of our all-star contributors for the writer, her name is Selena de la Fuentes. She's amazing. And what she does is she really writes in Tex-Mex. Like when you're talking about bilingual stories, like it is all over the place in both languages. But I think for San Antonio speakers, like that is something you can understand. And on the Spanish words, she provides a little asterisk, and at the bottom of her articles are all the translations for what those little words mean. Some of them are San Antonio slang, and some of them are like legit Spanish words. But I think that is like something we can look forward to seeing more of in the paper, so that people can be learning the languages together in one article, which is great.
That's fantastic. I liken that to, sometimes I have these conversations and we're getting into like Hispanic and Latino culture and how that works in PR and how that works in journalism, and people get so intimidated by Spanish. And well, part of the question is, well, what type of Spanish from what region are you speaking? But it's the same with English, right? How we speak English in San Antonio is different than, North Texas, West Texas, different states. And, so that's neat that Selena does that, because it does teach along with you, but then also gives you that, like my favorite coffee, a taste of San Antonio as well. So that's great. That's great.
She really loves that coffee.
I do. I love my coffee. I love my coffee. I was invited to a high tea the other day, and I'm like, I need to learn about that. I don't know much about tea. Okay, so we've talked a little bit. We've talked about language, and I love everything you're doing there and what you're offering our community and us pros. What kind of stories are you interested in covering? Let's start with you, Yvette. From your perspective, the board, what do they want to see more of? And then Roxy, on the editorial side, what do you want to see more of?
I think what we cover now is it really is the path that I would like to continue going down. It is those hyper local stories, things that are happening in the community. I think it's important for us to cover the stories of our culture, our struggles, our way of life. I think those stories need to be told by us. We need to tell our own stories. We really need to talk about our culture, about the way that we grew up, and the things that are kind of fading away a little bit, but it's still a very fun thing to remember. I remember writing a column. My column is Let's Talk About It. So I talk about things that sometimes are uncomfortable to talk about, or sometimes it's just a fun thing to write about, with things that are happening. And I think my very first column, it was called La Chancla, the reign of La Chancla. And we talked about how society was just a little bit better when the chancla reigned. So, and so just ask people for their comments and their feedback. And it was really fun to be able to talk about that, but everybody relates to the chancla. Everybody knows what the chancla is. And so that is so fun for us to be able to relate and remember, because we don't use the chancla anymore, it's gone. So it is what it is. But so telling the history, and I think to our board it's very important to continue to tell our history. San Antonio is got so much rich history, from the arts to the ruins that we have here, everything that San Antonio has to offer. And I think that's really important to the board to talk about those things. I know they also really want to cover what's going on in City Hall. I mean, I think it's very important to the board to find out if you ever sit, we don't have time to sit in on those things. They happen while we're all at work, while we're all busy. And so there are some things that happen that are very interesting. And so now we've got new members and stuff. So that's probably some of the stuff that we want to probably look at. And I know that's something the board really, that's very important to the board, because it does, their decisions do affect us, and what they do affect our communities, and to be able to make that information relatable, I think is very important for our board, for the community.
Absolutely. And in language, that would
Yes.
be a huge gift in terms of access and resources.
Mhm.
Wonderful. Roxy, your perspective, what kind of stories are you interested in covering? If we were going to email you, you go, oh, that's what I'm looking for.
Yes. So content that we really prioritize is like Texas history content. We work a lot with educators in San Antonio at higher ed institutions, like a lot of scholars who have a lot of cultural context they can offer to the history of San Antonio, which speaking to the roots of this paper, which was established in 1913, that was an amazing time in history when there was layered culture of not just the Norteño Mexicans coming to San Antonio and offering all of these resources as like really educated gente decente, and how they put their roots down in the city, also layered with the indigenous experience in San Antonio, and like the Spanish and the Texas and all of these confluences of culture happen here. So we really love to dig into that and get those different frameworks for approaching like how we are today and understanding why we are like this. Dr. Romo provides a lot of really great content in that arena, but we're always open to working with more scholars who have like really, really like specific interests. Like we were working with one scholar who was exploring the impacts of cominos in our food and where cominos comes from, and like how that has affected our like the taste of San Antonio, which is like those are really interesting stuff. That's what I love to read about. Also anything having to do with like our culture, like the Latino culture and experience, especially talking about family members and telling the stories of our families that have been in San Antonio, like legacy businesses in San Antonio. We work with them a lot to spotlight their journeys and to get more people excited to work with them. And then of course, like any kind of art we love. And I have a very big interest in permaculture and anything eco. And we found that like garden stories is excellent content bridge for our audiences of like the younger millennials who are like really into plants now. And then of course, like our grandparents who are like natural green thumbs. So that content is a really nice bridge for our audiences. We love to include those stories. So yeah, stuff like that.
I love that. I'm like, yes, succulents totally blew up during this, right? Our plants and our pets, that is so relatable. Food, of course, is such a bridge across communities, across cultures, but very, very beloved in ours for sure. So, okay, gardening stories. Well, very awesome. Before we get into all these wonderful questions we have here, anything else we should know foundationally about La Prensa, Texas? Yvette, anything that we missed?
I think that honestly, I think that we covered a lot. I just know that we haven't covered it all, and we probably would need a series of these. So we need another cup for another day. So I just like to share that we are very community. We've talked about the community and the contributions, and I really appreciate your questions and what you're asking. And I think ideally we are ready to move on to a little bit bigger and better things. We're evolving, and there will be so many new things coming in the very near future. We are about to take off, and believe it or not, we have taken off, but we are going to really take this paper to another level.
Yeah, awesome. I mean, you had journalists over in DC, so it's not, you've already been rolling on up. It's doing great.
Exactly.
Roxy, from your perspective, foundationally, anything else we should just put out there before we get into Q&A?
I think we covered everything.
Okay, great.
It's a really special paper.
That's awesome. Well, we're gonna dive into the people's questions because this is the people's paper, right? I have a moderator, Alexandra, who's helping me behind the scenes. I'm going to be peeking at the Q&A here, but then also, Alexandra, we want to keep an eye on what's happening in the chat. So if I miss anything, let me know. So let's see here. We have a question. Oh, so someone wants to know how they can get involved with La Prensa. Are there opportunities to be a part of the journalist team?
So we do have an internship program. And what we do is we will pair you up with one of the journalists and obviously go through your qualifications, see what you do, see what you know. And you have to be a fit. You just have to be a fit for us, but definitely there is opportunities.
Okay, and who should they contact or if they want to explore that?
So they would email the digital team and they can send the requests through the digital team, and then Karina Vaughn will reach out to them, and she is the one that takes care of that for us.
Okay, very good. Thank you. If there's an email, Roxy, if you could throw it in the chat, would be awesome. Somebody had a question on the bilingual nature of the paper. So they say, I haven't really understood the Spanish-English, I guess, percentage or divide, right? If you write a story that's in English and it's not published in Spanish or vice versa, sometimes readers are missing some of the information or stories. Does anyone know here the backstory or the origin story philosophy for that type of coverage?
Well, I know, like Roxy said, it was set up another way before, where it used to be put out in both English and Spanish. So what has happened with newspapers all over the country, it's expensive. It's very expensive to print, and that's why everybody's going digital. We are not going to ever stop printing. God will, as long as I'm here, we're never going to stop printing. Print is very important, but it is also very expensive. So if we, in a perfect world, if we were able to print our full paper in Spanish and in English, we would. It's unfortunate that we can't, and we just have to use our best judgment and try our best to put our stories out when we can. There are certain stories I have seen Roxy do where maybe 1 week it is in English, and then we publish it. If it's not time sensitive, then we'll publish it in Spanish.
Right. And also online there, you can find some of the pieces that have been translated or that we translated. Since we already translated, you'll see both English and Spanish version on our website. Absolutely.
And I will also add in there that if you have the ability as a pro or a storyteller or a story supporter, ally of Prensa Texas, to offer them content in both, that's a great way to kind of bridge that divide, because as we know, or if you can donate towards what they're doing and help with some of that gap, that's something we can think about as being part of that good change as well, and good support. But I agree. I often look at your paper and I'm very delighted and happy when I see the stories that you do in Spanish are the ones that have not been covered in Spanish elsewhere, but is really important to a lot of people. So I think that's a good way to gauge it, like you all are doing. So great. One of our guests, Raul, was a founding editor of Conexión in 2004.
Nice.
And he was saying his big challenge was also that balance between English and Spanish. The audience in San Antonio is often acculturated, right? There's a lot of third, fourth, and later gens here. Some understand Spanish, maybe like you, Roxy, use this as kind of a learning tool and a bridge. I think it's great. But he was wondering, in terms of targeting your audience, and as you think through, I think you talked about the English, Spanish resources, but is there anything in particular you see that's kind of working with the English audience or Spanish audience? I have noticed a lot more English on digital team. Is that specifically for a reason, or are you just testing everything right now?
No, our audience truly, social media, it really is the majority. We did gauge initially. We were able to look at reports, and they're just English speakers. They really are, and it just covers a lot more. We do some stories in Spanish on digital, but not very much. Not very much. It really is in English.
Okay, wonderful. Let's talk about the digital team because there's some questions in Q&A in the chat about that. That they're very active, obviously, on social media. Are there specific stories that that team is looking for that's different than maybe editorial?
They have a little bit different, absolutely, because editorial is it is a little different. We still talk about the same things, what's in the climate, what's going on, but we have one of the everybody does a little bit of something different and kind of all the same. We're looking for those heartfelt stories that should be told, giving the recognition to certain people. Legacy, absolutely, the legacy. We've got a legacy series. We have people that we want them to tell their story before they're not here anymore. And so that's another thing that they really look for. They look for the stories that nobody's telling. That's the story. They want to know those stories that nobody else is telling, that are important to the community.
Yeah, and I'll say, just from observing, and then Roxy, you chime in, I can tell they are looking for a little bit of fun. Would you say that's right?
They are extremely approachable reporters. And I would also add that, like, if there is a specific story, like if you watch the social media content, you'll see that everyone kind of has their own beat and kind of like their own personal interests, which really drive them to cover the stories that they are kind of closer to. So if you find yourself in that particular beat, I would just reach out to them on their Instagram channels as well, and just drop a line, drop a conversation. And they are so warm and friendly, like they will probably just want to check it out. Whatever it is that's going on, as long as it's in San Antonio, I would say it's fair game.
Sounds good. And do you cover, this is a question, all areas of San Antonio?
Yes.
Okay, very good. All righty. I got a lot of questions here, and I know because you PR pros we all get pressured for numbers, right? And understanding the reach and circulation. So do you all have an idea about how many copies are printed and distributed in Bexar County? Do you go outside of Bexar County?
Yes, we do. So distributed is 15,000 a week, and it is in Bexar County and the surrounding area. So we go out to Seguin, Canyon Lake, Bernie, just right outside of San Antonio.
Awesome. And okay, I'm going to ask this because I'm going to go deeper as a PR nerd. Are there numbers, your circulation numbers different, like on Sunday? Are you doing the weekday and Sunday as well, or just once a week now?
Once a week.
Once a week. So that's the Sunday paper?
Correct.
Okay, got it. Y'all get that? I hope y'all got that. I do have a question, and I think this is good just to kind of clarify things. Someone asked, are there 2 La Prensas in San Antonio?
No.
No, okay. So this is La Prensa Texas. There's one La Prensa Texas. Got it.
Correct.
And then you're now a nonprofit, correct? So how can businesses support you all financially?
They can write a check.
Where would that go to? There's somewhere on the website, or really tell us more about that.
Yeah, we do. We have a donate button on the website. They can certainly mail any type of contributions to us, and that would be at our PO box. It's 10730 Petrenko Road, 122-279, zip code 78251. And if we've got our sponsorship packages that will be going out for our annual fundraiser, which is on September 29th, is our gala that we have, our fundraising gala. It is an award ceremony where we recognize our grassroots, really grassroots people that have really contributed to the community. And this year we've had a lot of heroes this year. There's so many people during the freeze, during the pandemic, with the power outages. We've had so many things happen where people have stepped up and we want to recognize. But this year we'll be doing not just the grassroots, but the grass top, where we've got people and leaders that are going to also be recognized because a lot of people stepped up. They really did this year. It would be nice if we could recognize absolutely everybody, but that is what this is about. So that sponsorship package will come out and if you can email us as well if you're interested in becoming a sponsor. And we've got quite a few different opportunities for sponsorship this year.
Okay, wonderful. We had someone ask, do you all consider in-paper promotions for businesses with a charity partner? For example, a book drive for a nonprofit that's being held by a business. Something like that might work.
100%. Like, as long as it's free and it's something that the community can benefit for, we will definitely run it.
Okay, wonderful. Is there an area of town that you find your paper is most popular? I know you cover across the city, but is there a certain area you've noticed, hey, this is our sweet spot?
The west side. The west side of San Antonio. Yeah, we just cannot keep enough papers on the stands. They fly off.
That's wonderful. Okay. Do you think that tells you anything about that part of the community, or there?
It is the denser part, and it's so important because again, I said it's a free publication, and not everybody has internet access. Not everybody has access to the paper, and I'm sorry, not to the paper, but to the internet. And this is a resource, and it really does get picked up. It really does get read. People need to be able to have something attainable, and this is what we are.
I'll tell you what, I still get my print subscription to the paper, and there's just I'll stop and actually read the stories and consume it in a different way than anything online. But on that note, like, do you all have an offering for a paid subscription model?
We do not. We do not. I know that we have talked about doing that. Things changed for us. We initially were working on that, but when the pandemic came in, it just really changed things for all of us.
Absolutely. And you did talk about partnerships. I have a question about partnerships. Can you remind us, Yvette, who you said you work with in terms of partners for coverage purposes?
Telemundo and KROV FM radio.
Okay, wonderful. One of our viewers here had mentioned just an idea, maybe you could partner with a community paper like Community Impact that doesn't have that Latino community focus or that Spanish material. So as you explore that and want to look into different ideas in your evolution, she wanted to share that. So thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
Wonderful. We got about 5 more minutes. Any questions, Alexandra, I missed in our chat section? I see things popping up. Oh, wonderful. Someone's giving a shout out to Clint Westwood with Varios for Values for doing a great job.
Everyone loves Clint.
He's great. He went out to, I was working with Cass Schools, and he went and saw what they were doing for their theater production. It was bilingual. It was wonderful there. All good.
Yeah, and I would like to mention, like, another way people can support the paper is also by purchasing ads. Like, we do little business ads, like little 2-inch ones, that can cost as little as like $50. If you're trying to spread the word about something, or even for like family celebrations, we can do that too, which is great.
I did get a question, and I think but I didn't know the acronyms. So Sean, if you want to spell out the acronyms, we can talk about that real quick, but PR Pro is going to make sure that what we're asking is appropriate. So just give us a little bit of that intel. We'll be happy to answer that question. There was a question about, again, internship opportunities. We talked about on the editorial side, on the digital side, if we can add in the chat, if someone wants to be a digital reporter or digital reporter intern, that would be great. San Antonio Cultural Arts and National Association of Latino Arts and Culture. Have you worked with them recently, Roxy?
So that's NALAC and San Antonio Cultural Arts. Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes. We definitely work with them. I'm actually heading to the I love San Antonio Cultural Arts. They're amazing. They have their little publication as well. And we have always aimed to partner with them. We actually worked with them in 2018 and it was amazing. But after the pandemic, we haven't really been able to get back online with them. But we definitely will. And Nalak is awesome. I'm actually working with them, doing like an art workshop panel with them. They're doing like a series right now, but we definitely work with them.
Wonderful. Well, and that's a great point to kind of finish this out with, Roxy. There was a lot of organizations and great community support that really was disrupted by the pandemic, really was disrupted by everything that's changed. Even, our winter Texas storm here and snow and all these financial hardships has really thrown a lot of organizations off course. So this is our gift to the community to be able to share information, the access to your team so that they understand how to reconnect with you, Roxy, how to reconnect with you, Yvette, and La Prensa Texas, the different ways you work and how we can better tell our community stories together in English and Spanish and hopefully both. So as much as we can provide you all, let's stay committed to that PR and marketing and storytelling pros here. And as much as you all can help our community, we really appreciate it. And last thing is, I think we have one last question we'll kind of finish out with. If someone was to donate, and this is great for all nonprofit journalism, like when you have donors or advertisers, how do you keep stories objective? Educate us so that we can help share that information too.
Right. I would say, like with nonprofit journalism, it's definitely a new horizon for journalism and something that we're working with. But we will always remain objective, especially in some of our storytelling, like some ads and some of our community contributors. Sometimes they're telling totally opposite stories. But I think that's really interesting to see on the same page, because then readers can kind of take what they want from that information. And we're not afraid to run the objective stories.
Yeah, part of that, the storytelling is conflict and sharing both sides and letting the readers make those decisions for themselves and having access to the information for that. So great question, great answer. Well, thank you so much for being here. I am seeing my moderator said we should stop and smile for a quick photo. And if y'all want to take our photo and tag us online, we would love it. So, okay, ladies, right here, we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Thank you. And we're going to make sure that I have my LinkedIn in the chat. Thank you all for joining us. I would love to host another Cafecito, courtesy of MVW Communications, to better get to know each other and elevate our profession. I hope you all have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.